I have no words, Polyphony Digital. None. We are here for episode 127 in the challenge series, some month and change removed from the previous episode. And it's not even really my fault. It was in the first half, I'm not gonna lie. I was sick for the first half of August. First 2/3 even. But that had nothing to do with August also bringing us update 1.50. The update that has made, I would say, a solid 40 to 45% of all road cars in the game an actual chore just to keep on the racetrack and facing in the correct direction. God forbid try and drive them actually quickly. Just driving them at all without bottoming the car out under braking and sending yourself into the nearest solid object is a Herculean task in a lot of front-engine rear-wheel drive cars, and especially anything four-wheel drive. This episode exists basically to spite Polyphony, and no other reason. Like, I was reluctant to even do the races. I was like, do I wait for the next update? Do we get an update? Does the update actually improve the handling? Because as anybody who looked at the internet for like the first like few days after the update came out will know, the update broke the game in more than just the handling department, considering with enough rear ballast and enough of a soft suspension setup, you could send a Samba bus to space. Or even higher. And they fixed that. They fixed the dramatic-ass edge case that caused the entirety of the internet to blow up. But they did not actually fix the drivability of the cars affected by the handling. They changed the suspension parameters and the physics behind them. That just makes them jelly. And we'll see it with a couple of vehicles in the races in this episode, because there are a lot of new cars and drivers. It would be a huge cause for excitement at any other time. But the only reason that is because I've had an entire month to sit on my creative brain with absolutely nothing else to do with it, because I cannot do any episodes, or could not for a while. But with no further ado, I say no further ado, I can continue talking. I'll continue to explain things as the race gets underway, including the multitude of brand new drivers, and plenty of new cars to go with those drivers. But let's just take the session. Let's head down to the green flag. We are underway for the start of episode 127, which would be a very unusual one by any standards. We do not have the typical formula going on either, as this week is exclusively roulette races, or really just open entry races. And they were mostly reserved for the sheer multitude of brand new drivers getting their start this week. As it turns out, Jinte was very busy with recruitment, and he was not just focusing on the Shutoko Expressway crew. We see an absolute cluster of cars heading through the middle part of the lap here at Fuji Speedway, because where else would this race be to start off the week? Juan Santo in his CLK GTR is our point of view driver, trying to pick his way through the cars in the lower classes. We'll get through the first lap and then begin the long sequence of introductions, because minus like 4 or 5, I think it's like 3 cars have made a previous start in this series. 3. You're looking at one of them in Juan Santo's CLK. And then the other 2 that are returning vehicles are August Embers in their Celica. Okay, there's 4. And then Eric Wojciechowski and Marcus Mendez in normal vehicles that have appeared before. So at the end of lap 1, And we will start with Emma Daunt, our first Belgian driver since the unplanned exit of Maurice Zollner back in the first third of Season 1. And she appears with a Super Trofeo spec Lamborghini Gallardo, basically. Ty McIntosh, obviously not a new driver, but he finally has himself a 750 class car themed after something he drives in iRacing. Ashlyn Chambers, a British driver who imported a Dodge SRT Demon, has an insatiable passion for loud cars and high speeds. Farah Fadanzi, I had to remember her name, and also a Super Trofeo spec Lamborghini Gallardo, but this one is basically left as was, while Emma Daunt is actually just a... this is essentially like a dramatized kit car with added horsepower, but Fadanzi is just driving one in the flesh, more or less. Liv Newstein with a modified BMW E36. That's not a BMW engine you're hearing there. That is an LS engine. Charlotte Riel with a new Roof RGT in her collection. Maki Nishikino, her Maserati Gran Turismo had a bit of a problem as it gets past Mika Harris. Oh yeah, that car is returning. Okay, so there are 5. 1/4 of this field is a vehicle that has been in the series before. Monsanto is already in 4th, with the exception of... actually no, it's just the top 4 are 750 class cars. Daunt, McIntosh, Chambers, and Santo. I'm going to actually pause the action here to get through the cars before the race is over. Yeah, Maki's Gran Turismo Maserati had a bit of a problem. The engine just kind of stopped, and there was no clear diagnosis as to why it stopped working. It just kind of did. The only thing we could really tell was there was a lot of rattling. My best guess is there was probably something wrong with the piston. But nobody else even had that much of a guess. So it has been duly replaced with a De Tomaso Mangusta, and the suspension on it needs a little bit of work. As you can see, Maki is struggling to keep that car going straight. It is a little bouncy, kind of gyrating almost as it heads through the long right-hander. Can't properly stop for this hairpin and rocks back and forth on gas. This has absolutely nothing to do with any incompetence on the developer of the video game's part. I don't know what in the fuck you are talking about. Up the shut fuck. Edgar McAdams, our first New Zealander driver, repping a Ferrari 430 Scuderia. He has racing history under Ferrari's multiple factory-supported teams in GT racing history. Alexis Alviras with a McLaren F1 GTR, or F1 LM, the road-going version, just slightly modified to look like the racing version. This car has been seen before. Alice Carson's previously 600 class S2000, which has thus been given a massive, complete overhaul. Some new sponsors in play and a slight redesign on just the car in general, but the big thing is that it now has a K2 engine installed. Our second Indian driver, I forgot about Zoya, because she had to race under a different flag. But they did add new nationalities to the game, so we can now properly represent that nation. We can properly represent India, among others. Nilu Zubair in an Alpine A110. Barbara, I think, is familiar with her by the way things seemed. Hanamaru only ran one race on week 126, debuting her Lancia Delta. Did not debut her other 2 vehicles. We'll see the second one later, but for now, here is her 675 class E30 M3. And right behind her is Antonio Monroe in a GTO Judge. In fact, Monroe is not his birth last name, but he doesn't like to talk about it. Dean Cross, friend of August Embers and of Thrasher, has made his appearance, finally, driving a Mr. 2, as he insists I call it. And obviously Embers is here to accompany him on his debut, making him also our first Croatian driver. How somebody from Philadelphia meets somebody from Croatia in the first place is news. I'm not exactly sure. And the last debuting driver for this race is Nina Oliveira in a very unique-looking first-generation Mazda Miata. Another Brazilian driver to add to the lineup. We do not have too many of those, and the ones we do have, that was out of character. Eric just came undone on the way into the hairpin, and definitely didn't have anything to do with any sort of weird suspension physics that may have been involved in the development of the previous update to this game. Please stop asking if that's the case. It is not. As we're about a third of the way through, actually exactly that, because this race is set for 15 minutes. This was done mainly to fill runtime in the week, but also to give myself time to address all of the new characters, and I still stopped the race because I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to get through all of the new characters and free a lot of time and actually cover the race, because there is a race here. There is an orange Dodge machine, and it is not being driven by Tyler. Somebody who's known him for like 7-8 years. This doesn't seem right, but such is what happens when your team ends up becoming the factory-supported team of General Motors themselves, and you are forced to drive almost exclusively GM models, particularly Chevrolet. And even so, that hasn't stopped him from driving a General Lee replica, basically, and in the dirt division, and a Dodge Charger in 600 class, because GM doesn't actually have many options for that low of a category. Mika Harris is trying to get at least ahead of every vehicle that's lower than her category-wise. The only one that's left the path to do that is Clara Fidanzi, who's leading the 715 category in her Gallardo, because despite being the same exact car, as you can clearly see from the fact that Emma Gaunt has the lead, and has had it since the very start, as Ashlyn Chambers moves into second place ahead of the Z01 of Macintosh. Yeah, that thing is a little faster. It's pretty plain to see. Juan Sancho is struggling to make headway on the top three, as his power deficit is really hurting him at this circuit. And although he's making good time in corners, there are not a ton of them here. Mika has made her way to 6th, or to 5th, I can count. Yeah, so these four, Fidanzi, Riel, Newstein, and McAdams, are your 715 category drivers. Lyris is having a really bad race. This is a 750 class car, by the way, and she is struggling to overtake Maki, who is driving a 675 spec Magusta with really bad suspension settings. Carson, Zubair, and Kunakita are the rest of the 675 class. Maki is pretty well ahead of them all, in spite of her very awkward handling, as we're seeing right there, as the car is rocking back and forth like a broken chair. And Antonio Monroe leads the 3-car 640 class. Actually, yeah, no, this is 675, so I don't really know what, I guess Hanamaru is just kind of a little green, so to speak. But yeah, Monroe leads 640 over Cross and Embers, and then Nina Oliveira now leads the 600 class after Eric's spin earlier. And it's obvious that he's still struggling with that incredibly soft, sensitive suspension. While all that was going on, Juan Sancho used his cornering grip, and he slid into 3rd ahead of the Z01. Probably some outbraking into the hairpin was in play. And tries around the outside of Chambers, cuts back on the SRT, and does get out of the corner better, and has second place for a mere couple of seconds before reality kicks in, and the Demon drives the hell off because it's got over 1,000 horsepower even in the 715 category. It's just so freaking heavy that it doesn't really seem like it has that much power, but trust me, it does. Tyler also tries to form a response against the TLK, gets his way down the inside, maybe a little aggressively so, but no contact was made, so it is effectively fair game. But now we have the high-speed corners, and Juan Santo is going to eat that Camaro right up. All-you-can-eat buffet of clean overtakes, and he will be on his way with that one. As what's going on elsewhere around the field, Maki is actually up to the back of Newstein, who, again, is in a car one category higher than her. Nearly drives into the back of the M3, as a matter of fact. But there's really not much doing. Juan Santos back at it again. Gets blocked off by Chambers, gets the switchback, and again is in second for a brief moment before being demoted back to third after Chambers can manage to put the power down. This thing is actually outclassing Daunt in a straight line, and handily so at that. But it's unsurprisingly struggling in the turns. Meanwhile, lap traffic has come into play as the 600 class is being overtaken by the leaders. Daunt losing a bit of time to that. Chambers losing, it looks like, even more time to that. Stuck behind Mendez through turn 2. Juan Santo, this endurance racing pedigree, has no such struggles getting through traffic and will sneak into second ahead of Chambers with the assist from Marcus Mendez. Gets past Oliveira much more efficiently than Daunt, and now, well, he was right on her diffuser until Emma got on the gas. The traffic has also brought Tyler up to the back of Chambers so he can try and at least claim his podium spot again that he had at the start of the race. Skipping ahead through Sector 3, nothing happened there. And there's still really not a whole lot happening. Chambers remained ahead of McIntosh. Mika is on an island. Pedonzi has the straight line advantage over the roof. The roof is also disadvantaged versus the 430 Scuderia, as the 715 category is now up to the back of the 600 class with Mendez and Głoszowski, who has overtaken Mendez in presumably the Blue Flag's chaos a moment ago. That is very close together there, but not really much of anything happening. That's not exactly a place you can make up places right there. That sounds redundant. Nose to tail, the three leaders in 715, heading through the middle part of the lap with what should be maybe 2.5 laps to go. They will have to negotiate Oliveira up there. Meanwhile, Juan Santo is still not really contesting the Gallardo in the lead. They were almost 3 abreast. They split the difference. That was quite a shot. As we see from onboard, Oliveira just getting consumed, stuck in the middle of multiple lead lap cars. And the battle just happens directly in front of her. Hopefully Nina had some popcorn in the cockpit. That was quite a show. And we'll get that one more time from the viewpoint of a person in the battle. Pedonzi trying to hold on to her position. McAdams trying to take it away. Got his 430 alongside for the whole chicane, but just could not convert. The Gallardo being 4-wheel drive, giving Pedonzi the run, or the exit that she needed to stay ahead of the Ferrari. Lamborghini versus Porsche versus Ferrari. This is the supercar battle to end them all right here. You almost think this was a CS Spectre while the supercars running around, except they're a little older than that. Santo has finally made some inroads on the Gallardo, as we are at basically 1.5 laps remaining for the race. It would seem that Daunt's success story here, other than the fact that she herself is a professional driver who has raced many times for Lamborghini-supported race teams in, say, Super Trofeo, and even in some endurance racing, and she knows her way around the Lamborghini, to say the least. And the fact that this car, being a modified body kit of what was the Super Trofeo spec for the car, means that it's making almost as much downforce as a GT4 car. But equip that, put that on an engine that's doing twice as much horsepower as any Group 4 car could even hope to achieve. But Dean Cross is in the way, completely blocking Daunt's progress. Juan Santos sneaks his way by in the utter chaos. And the endurance racing legend benefited by lap traffic, but it may not be enough. Daunt is back. The top speed of the Gallardo, actually more so is just the lack of top speed on the CLK, means that even with everything in the world trying to help him take the lead, he can't hold on to it. And the top 4 are the only drivers who will get to start this 10th and final lap. Mika Harris gets last in category, or that's not true. She's still from kind of Aliris. Farah Fadanzi wins in 7:15. Okay, never mind. Maki, despite being finally passed by Aliris, does hang on to the category win in her new Mangusta. Monroe, with a huge lead over Dean Cross, will handily win the 640 category in the GTO. And although it will come down to the finish line, looks like Oliveira is good to take the 600 class win in a drag race against Eric Wojciechowski. Mendez, relatively distant. And as we were acknowledging, though, the category winners, a pass for the lead took place again. Down the inside goes Juan Santo, but Emma Daunt gets her elbows out and heads off the CLK at the pass, quite literally so. This is the last big breaking point of the track and Juan Santo's last chance to really get something done, but even that shorter straightaway is enough time for the Gallardo to break free. All over the curb, aggressive on the corner exits. Juan Santo didn't really get a whole lot of battling like this in his endurance days. Daunt goes incredibly wide, allows space for the CLK to send it, but it's going to be the long way around at the last turn, and even if he could pull it off, that crossover move, it works wonders, but only to some degree. The superior horsepower will drag Emma Daunt to a win on debut here at the start of week 127. Ashlyn Chambers third, and McIntosh brings his new Camaro home in P4. The second race of week 127 on Wednesday rather than on Tuesday brings us to Europe for the Deep Forest Raceway. And the same race type, same 15-minute roulette race, open entry, but with preference and bias towards drivers with new cars, or just in general, new drivers. And we have another almost full grid this time around. Very few drivers or cars that we haven't seen before. There were 5 returning vehicles in the previous race, and if I remember right, there are actually fewer in this one. We are away from deep forests, and actually, as a matter of fact, there's only one vehicle that we've seen here before in this entire race that posted Alice Carson getting absolutely destroyed off the line because that's a 600 class car. That one returning vehicle is in a different category still. Yuki Utsuki has moved this Impreza to the 675 category. As he has acquired a new vehicle to race in dirt, and he has converted this into a street racer effectively. But before we get too far into the racing action, he's already in 9th place. An entire list of new vehicles, and a lot of them in with new drivers. Currently leading the way is Horatio Cascio in an Evo 9, an infamous street racer who leads his own gang on the Shutoko Expressway, one I have not yet beaten, as a matter of fact. I mean, what? No, who am I kidding? Everybody knows that. Junichi Yukiyama. I don't remember if it's former or current Yakuza member, but also street racer. This was a pretty big shock to me, and the fact that he's also not even racing here with his own daughter, dumbass niece. It's her uncle, Riker, Ricky Briggs, uncle to Rebecca. The reason that she's been racing, among other things, for so long is to raise enough money to bail him out of jail. And he's finally out. And he brings his personal Chevelle to the fold. Sunjin Kyung in a livery of all time on an engine-swapped Hyundai Genesis. Elena Lassiter, first Irish woman to join in a while, driving a Porsche Cayman. Michael Krieger, also in an E36, this one with the stock engine. Bruce Breckenridge in a McLaren, what? A McLaren 12C. There's Hanamaru's other car, an E46 BMW. BMWs are very popular this week. Io Minori in a Toyota Mr. 2, a second one of those debuting this week. Sam Hilton with a very different looking NRA Mazda Roadster rather than the ND he has been rocking up to this point. The ND is out of the series as he has replaced it with this with the slightly better performance grade. Alice Carson with another livery of all time on her new EK Civic. Presumably she modified the S2000 up to 675 class and then obtained this car to replace it. Mano Alto in a Honda Integra, our first Filipino driver on the Challenge Series, with quite the livery. There are quite a few nice liveries in this race, I must say. Some kind of missed the mark a little bit, but, I mean, look at Yukiyama's fucking Supra, like, holy shit. Lassiter's is pretty solid, even if it is, it's a little typical, I suppose. Breckenridge also kind of basic, but it also kind of reminds me of the race modifications from like Gran Turismo 1 and 2, and I guess 5. Hanamaru's would be nice if not for that weird color choice, that weird shade of yellow. That livery, but then we have this like samurai-themed Integra, and then we have, right behind them, Mario Leonardi in an Alfa Romeo Giulia that looks like it belongs in 1972. Simon Schuster, the Austrian Audi driver, with a really basic livery. Rika Hanazaka in a Ray Brake-themed NSX, as if we don't already have one of them. This thing needs better light to really do it justice. Mike Kiki Pele with probably my favorite livery I've seen in a while. This evil thing. It's a volcano fucking Mitsubishi GTO. Maybe a bit on the nose since she's from Hawaii and she's racing to raise money for disaster recovery effort charities and such. getting overtaken by Sora Saito, an actual active-duty police officer in Japan. Christina Campa in a new 300ZX. And lastly, Star Fiera, who's actually from New Orleans but doesn't talk like it, in a Suzuki Swift. Anyway, now let's actually get to the race, because that's kind of the reason we are here. There are no cars in the 750 class this time. The entire field is 715 or lower. And Yuki's looking to make a pass on two cars at the same time. Almost 3 wide. Distances out easily in the braking zone, but gets cut off by the McLaren. Elena Lassiter in the 715 class came and moves to the race lead over Horatio Kasha, perhaps unsurprisingly, since this is a 675 class car. Obviously it's going to get dusted by a 715 Cayman. So my infinite wisdom, in the original recording attempt of this, I managed to mute my mic to have a quick coughing fit, and then I just never turned it back on for the remainder of the recording until the end of the race, when I went to mute it again, and then had to unmute it, and then ended up unmuting it. We are 3 wide, by the way, as Itsuki gets ahead of both Breckenridge and Kyung on the back straightaway. Yukiyama really losing out on that one. He went from, I believe, 3rd to 6th in one straight. Breckenridge would rather have that position though, and with the added power of the McLaren, it's not enough. He can't hold that grip. Itsuki pinched him down on the inside of the final little kink up to the start-finish straight, and Breckenridge could not maintain grip. A classic battle here, Subaru Impreza versus an Evo. Same category and everything. Red versus blue and everything. It's exactly as you'd like it to be, I suppose. Subaru's going to come out on top pretty easily here, though. Casio had 0 momentum going towards that little run to that braking zone there. And Itsuki just made off like a bandit, all things considered. But he's got quite a ways to go if he's ever going to get anywhere near Elena Lassiter, who's probably some 8 or 9 seconds up the road in that Porsche. That visualizes the gap there pretty well, honestly. Yukiyama falls to Hanazaka. Schuster trying to follow the NSX through, but is being very much held up on exits. Schuster got ahead of him into turn 1, I believe, but the cameras did not catch it. He is pushing that out. You can see just the way that it's flexing and bending through these turns. Definitely nothing to do with the weird suspension physics of this game or anything. I don't know what you mean. Breckenridge found his way into the podium there. Past Casio at some point. I'm not sure exactly when that would have been. It is quite a melee heading down towards the hairpin. 3 cars in a line, but I don't really know if they're at all close enough to actually attack each other. Pele certainly has a peek down the inside of Michael Krieger, but nothing doing. A lot of the field, especially in the kind of lower categories, is really spread out. It's the higher classes that are running close together, especially the 715 and 675 cars, as a lot of that is the 715 cars trying to pick their way through the cars in slower categories, which most of them have done. But finally, now that we're almost done with the race, and we're basically at 1.5 laps to go, and the gap between Itsuki and Lassiter is still pretty big. Also, when talking about this is a 2-minute race, we're basically only just past the halfway mark. We still have quite a bit of racing to go, but not a whole lot of action to go in it, except for this. Schuster getting ahead of Breckenridge in the back on the back straight hairpin. Textbook outbraking move, even if we didn't see the first half of it. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's just, you know, just a run-of-the-mill overtake. He's doing what he has to do to get up to the leaders. I think we might see a fastest lap here. Yes, 27.5 compared to the last lap. Elena Lassiter ran a 31 flat. I think she's kind of feeling a little complacent. She doesn't seem to think Utsuki is a threat to catch her, but he ran 29.6. He is willing her in. Is it enough, though? Especially considering once Elena sees him in her mirrors, she certainly will up the ante and start pushing again. We're also going to have lap traffic soon. As I think I'm seeing, yeah, there's Fiera, and there's the leader right behind her. Not right behind her, but pretty close. She'll be able to get ahead of the Swift before anything becomes an issue, but the next lap car, she may not have the same convenience. Skipping ahead another half lap. Schuster is now up to the 50 of Yuki at this point. The Audi R8 has run a heck of a couple of laps, the 28 flat there, not quite the 27.5 he ran before. But he is working his ass off to get up to the leaders. He's up to second pretty handily. Elena has been held up a tiny bit by traffic and has still continued to put in very 675 class lap times, 31 again. I think she might want to get into the hurry up though, because there is the Impreza just about a second back now, and he's bringing an R8 with him, which is probably even more of a threat than Yuki himself is, because the R8 is more powerful. It is also being blocked by a Miata, and that's going to lose him a couple of precious seconds as we are getting near what I would believe to be 2 to go. Indeed, it should be 2 to go. The race will probably end at about the 15:15 mark, so barely over the minimal runtime. They're all pretty evenly spaced apart. Just looking at the track map too, the whole field is really spread apart. The only cars that are really near each other are we've got still now 4 640 class cars fighting for 13th, but they're all just not really fighting, they're just kind of in a little neat train running behind the E46 of Hanamaru. Meanwhile, Yuki Utsuki has finally arrived. Elena is going to definitely want to step on it now because she is actually under threat. She can no longer just drive at 75% and just hold a comfortable lead. Now she's going to have to fight for her right to party. Yuki's trying to outbrake her already. Nobody's home though, no success. And he can't be too greedy, or Simon Schuster in the Audi R8 is also joining this battle. 1 lap to go coming up here, and the top 3 practically under a fucking blanket. 1, 2, 3. Practically nose to tail heading towards the first corner. That is a very interesting line from Schuster. That's not helping things, I can tell you that. Lap traffic will be in the way. Amano Alto and the Integra, not a huge issue for Lassiter and basically a non-issue for the 50 of Yuki. Schuster had to take the long way around at a very long corner, but I guess didn't necessarily get blocked, which is, I suppose, the important thing. Not a huge loss of time. Everybody had to go around the Integra. No results with the attempted dive into the the hairpin onto the back straightaway. I think that's a hairpin, right? Yeah, that's more than 90 degrees. That'd be a hairpin. Are we about to be 3 wide? Oh, we kinda are. Okay, Yuki's just gonna lose out. He's not gonna be able to participate here, as much as he darn well tried to. And he's not gonna have the horsepower to sprint down the hill to try and take the win away. So it's gonna be 2 German cars drag racing to the line. Time expires. It's not even going to be 15-15, but it's not enough. Simon had his resurgence, but Elena Lassiter will barely eke out this victory on debut. Simon Schuster close with second, and Yuki comes home in V3. Winning his category at the very least, so he did everything he needed to, but he was this close to doing everything. Ricky Briggs wins the 640 class and is fittingly being followed by a police car. I'm sure he's more than used to that. And the very small 3-car 600 class is won by Sam Hilton in the NRA Miata. But it is Elena Lassiter, in spite of the fact that Schuster passed her under the cooldown lap, grabbing the overall victory for Ireland. Final race of week 127 on Friday rather than Wednesday brings us to North America for Trial Mountain. This one is slightly different, and by slightly I mean largely different, since all of the remaining drivers that had not yet debuted this week were either in a 715 car or a 640 car. We just decided it wasn't going to be a roulette race. It was just a roulette race. It was just going to be a multi-class 10-minute race instead of the 15-minute races that we were having on the previous 2 races this week. So, yeah. Top category 715, bottom category 640. Not quite a 10-10 split. It was a 9-11 split. Ironically, no Porsches were involved in the race, but it was interesting. That's for sure. We are away from Trial Mountain, the mountain of trials, if you will, and off to a rocket ship start is our POV driver Dominic DePrisco in a Lamborghini Aventador, and that sure is ironic considering who is in front of him. I'm gonna have to have a word with Thrasher. Why he let this guy back in? Yeah, sure. He has a car down. He has a 1999 Lamborghini Diablo, ironically. But that's besides the point. This guy was just nothing but a headache when he was here. But I guess he is back. But also joining the series, we have Ellis Henderson, who apparently goes by Nomad. Seems he's more of a demo derby and banger racing connoisseur, but he drives the same R33 in those, curiously enough. I don't quite get it either, but I guess that's what he does. Then we have to scroll down quite a bit to the... Yeah, those are the only ones. Dwayne Hansen, who's currently Tokyo drifting through the corner onto the back straight. Kind of a sick shot, actually. And Ellis Henderson are the only ones in the 715 category that are new. Then we also have Max Stanford in a Tundra, friend of Damien Kotexa, who is not on the grid. And Mike Stewart, who's not really a new driver, but his truck has switched categories. So, yeah. And then the brand new team, that's not yet actually official, but I'm pretty sure it will be soon. Art of Racing is the name, which just kind of makes me think of Spirit of Racing and Heart of Racing, real life WEC teams. No, this team really confuses the hell out of me. Apparently, there's this fancy-ass new VR headset I somehow haven't heard of that basically is far more immersive and makes you feel like you're actually playing, like you're actually there. And so this team of drivers are using a far more advanced VR headset than the PSVR 2 to play GT7, and it basically acts like they are in the car. Apparently, the headset is capable of heavy vibrations that simulate G-forces as well as other things. And from what I've been told, it also seems as though if they were to crash straight into a wall, it would actually physically hurt them. Not sure why somebody put themselves through that. Also, not to mention the applications of, we're talking to what, VR avatars now? I shouldn't really be all that surprised. We are dealing with people from other universes after all, but yeah, team of 4, Keiko, Silica, Suguha, I struggled with this fucking name hardcore, Lifa, Shino Sinon, and Rika Lisbeth. Second person this week to debut with the first name of Rika. Go fucking figure. Shame they're not in the same category. That'd be an interesting battle. I like how they're 1, 2, and 4 in the category, and then Silica, who made the pitiful choice of driving a front-wheel drive car, is bringing up the rear, despite, I believe, starting at the front of this category. Yeah, she did, but this thing doesn't get off the line worth a crap. Got passed by all 3 of her teammates immediately, and Wood, and Stewart, and Houston, and Briggs, Ricky, and Sakuruchi, and the other Briggs. Got passed by all but 1 vehicle before we even made it to turn 1. And then, in the traffic jam, got passed by the final 1 before we got to turn 3. Watch this sick drift from Wayne Hansen. And here's Dominic. No conflict. That is honestly flabbergasting. I don't know if that's really a noun. I think that's not a verb. Oh, there's the bump. Wayne Hansen gives him the bumper and moves back to second. And Katie Rose getting a good seat to all of this action. Oh, Wayne is off and blocking Dom again. More sliding in the backfield. That's the backfield, the midfield, but the back of the 715 field anyway. Down the inside goes the Aventador. Understeering into the wall. There was actually no contact there. Just Dominic just not turning it well enough. Ellis Henderson leads lap 1. Helped probably by cross move. What the hell? That didn't work. Wayne Hansen botches turn 1. In his defensive line. Around the outside goes to Prisco, but I know these two, that's not going to be the last we'll see of this nonsense. Yep. Sending it is the Diablo, smacking the Aventador out of the way. These two picking up right where they left off when Dominic took Wayne Hansen out of the series entirely. Sometime in the middle of last season, I don't remember the exact time frame, I should say. All I know is it was last season and it was pretty fucking ugly. This time Hansen does not Tokyo drift for this turn. Instead, that I think was up to Buck Angelos to do. Too wide again, and still Dominic choosing not to make offense, so to speak, but cannot get down the inside of Henderson, or on the outside either, for that matter. Tries to arc it late, get a good exit, and get to that R33. Too wide for the lead, but is not able to capitalize. And Hansen is going to sneak around the outside. That's a rare bit of racecraft from him. Katie Rose still watching onwards as the two Lamborghinis slug it out, and the R33 tries to get out of the blast radius. We are 3 wide heading towards the final 2 corners. Not that you can tell, the camera would not pan out far enough. There we go. Yeah, there we go. 3 wide. Dominic was really far away and gets chopped at the apex of the turn, so he is forced to concede. He's even getting a little short with Henderson too, and he would probably be able, yes, to out-drag the Skyline heading towards turn 1. As I said earlier, this is only a 10-minute race. 8 is not an option. 8 is the average length of a normal race that isn't like a multi-class or roulette round. I'm really early on the brakes there. The Aventador is heavy, so I suppose that's probably the reason. Rose very close to Alice Henderson, trying to maybe sneak her way to the podium here. Meanwhile, 2 Group 4s do lead the category. Sinon and Elizabeth have held it down for the newly formed / unofficial Art of Speed. Leafa only having been passed by Mike Stewart, and Silica is, well, not completely irrelevant, but is still running in last. Look back to the actual race leaders. Hansen chucks it down the inside of the backstretch hairpin. Clean, as aggressive it was still clean. That was less clean. They both find a wall. Wayne basically puts himself into the wall using Dom's car. That was a slick turnaround. But Dominic definitely got the worst of that. I think Wayne tried to go down his inside, and Dominic just took a different line towards the next hairpin. That, or Wayne just did it on purpose, because, yeah, I don't know. Dominic couldn't stop, he was in the grass. He put Wayne in the wall because he was getting turned himself. Let me see this from our chase camera. See whose lines crossed who there. Yeah, no, that's just Wayne driving straight into his quarter panel and putting them both in the wall. I'm really not surprised by anything at this point. Dominic with a quick J-turn. Very slick maneuver and also very angry maneuver. I'm sure I know him pretty well. He's been around for a while, we'll say. And obviously this is absolutely not his first run-in with Wayne Hansen. This is like, I don't even want to think about how many times it probably is. Probably in the 40s, if I were to guess, just as a ballpark number. More times than I care to count, or more times than Dom himself cares to count. A little while later, and he is back up to the rear bumper of that Diablo that just sent them both spinning out of control. Buck doing more sliding through the corner onto the back straightaway. They're trading paint on the front straightaway. Nearly another spin as Dom basically cut Wayne off on the straightaway and nearly spun himself on the front of the Diablo. Almost another bump administered. Managed to just about stop in time, whether he wanted to or not. Oh, just cut him off on exit instead. Drop his nose off, messes his front arrow. The thing is heavy, it's already turning bad enough as it is, case in point. Quick intermission, and yeah, still the same lead 2. Like Stewart not really putting any more pressure on them. Leafa has lost more places though. And Silica is no longer in last, she has overtaken Briggs. How the hell? Well, actually, before she overtook Briggs, she was ahead of Stanford at an earlier point, and she does it like this. The Group 4s do one thing, and that is brake incredibly well, especially when that thing is so light. They're barely weighing over a ton. But even still didn't stay ahead of it for long. Not through there, anyhow. Much better into this corner, though. Must have got a really good exit, though, out of that right-hander beforehand. However, once again, the truck gets just better power down, not being front-wheel drive. Silica's back to last. Oh, that'll just do it. She just completely loses it going onto the back straightaway, and Silica is able to just kind of sneak on by. However, she may not be destined to stay there by the looks of things. I don't know. That is the Camaro behind her. That thing's got some power. Meanwhile, back at the ranch with what should be 2 to go here. And Dominic has had enough. Oh no! Oh my god! Oh, the suspension's. Oh my Jesus Christ. It is utter fucking bullshit. Nothing changes around here, man. Tell me, what do you see, Angelos? Do you see anything from here? Not really. He's being passed by Madison Palmer. Drake's where that Chevelle is. Yeah, just he sees dust. So we'll just go back to a different camera. Yeah, they made contact before the start-finish line, and then Dominic just chucks it at him. But Wayne comes back at him, clips the front of his car, and sends him straight into a barrier at 150, straight to the dome. And because the suspension's broken, and he didn't really realize that, he just slightly drifts over and collects his own team owner, Brian Ice, who is also put straight into the wall and takes a massive amount of damage. This red flagged the race. Ice had a moment trying to turn around, so I guess the Diablo isn't completely junked somehow, but I think the Aventador probably is junked after that. Hansen gets along fine. He bounces off into Dominic and basically takes him down with him, but he didn't really actually get the wall that bad. So he really just kind of turned into a martyr there. And took out one car, one part of Pacific Spirit Racing, and did some massive damage to another. But yeah, that red flagged the race, so that means that Ellis Henderson is your winner on his debut. Very closely followed by Katie Rose, and Buck Angelos will get third. So a good day for Demon Sport, capitalizing off of the absolute nonsense that was happening between the other crew. That Aventador is not going anywhere anytime soon. Ice lucky to even have a working car, and it is going to be a 1-2 for the Art of Speed. But if I'm Celica, I think I'm probably looking for a new car. Leafa did okay in the RCF Group 4, but Celica only managed to get to where she is after Rebecca lost control and nearly spun the car out. But that is it for week 127. Shouldn't have taken as long as it did. This should have been out like a week and a half ago. Just kind of wasn't. But, yeah. Mr. Nonsense has returned, and I don't know how to feel about it.